Some of the Pharisees asked, "Why are you doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" Jesus answered them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He entered the house of God and, taking the consecrated bread, ate what is lawful only for priests to eat, and he also gave some to his companions. Then Jesus said to them, 'The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath.' On another Sabbath, he went into the synagogue and was teaching, and a man was there whose right hand was shriveled. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. But Jesus knew what they were thinking, and said to the man with the shriveled hand, 'Get up and stand in front of everyone.' So he got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, 'I ask you, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it?' He looked around at them and then said to the man, 'Stretch out your hand.' He did so, and his hand was completely restored." The Word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. I come to my favorite point in the semester, the opportunity to speak in chapel. That was sarcasm, but we'll kick it off with that. In their book, Education for Human Flourishing, Paul Spears and Stephen Loomis lament the universal conquest of the bureaucratic class on especially education. Being as all of our institutional effectiveness people are out, I will chuckle at my joke there inside and not share it with everyone else. They talk a whole lot about zero tolerance policies and the way that policies function really specifically and even intentionally to take wisdom out of the decision-making process. You can see this especially in legal terms in things like three-strike laws and stuff like that, where a judge, it takes discernment out of the judge's hands, and now he has to follow the policy. Well, this is especially acute in schools, and you see it all over the place. Just in one example, in 2013, an 8-year-old at an elementary school ate his Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun. Now, I make Batmans out of the tortillas, so I'm a little nervous about this. But he was suspended from school for 2 days, and additionally, he's got a gun-related note in his permanent school record. Humans like simple. Simple is easy. Simple is helpful, except when it's not. And it's not helpful when people are involved and when wisdom is required. So, the portrayal of Judaism, at least in the Gospels and in much of Christianity today, is legalistic, sort of xenophobic, and all those kinds of things. And to some extent, we can understand that, right? Consider what the Jews had been through during the period of the Maccabees and with the Greeks and all the Hellenization. There's a sense that they're trying to protect their culture. They're trying to protect who they are from all of these invading sources that they keep facing. Well, you can kind of understand this sort of legalistic take when it comes to keeping the Sabbath, keeping the food laws, and those kinds of things. In Luke, as we saw last week, Luke has just narrated the call of the first disciples, as well as a couple of healings. And so clearly there's something new, something exciting, bubbling up here in Jesus. And this chapter itself, in fact, includes Luke's presentation of Jesus' most famous sermon, given on a mountain in Matthew's telling. The sermon which offers the ethics, the character of the new covenant, the birth of a new people of God. The mountain here, though, in a sense, foreshadows the sermons. For in Luke's telling, Jesus climbs the mountain prior to the sermon to pray. And he prays all night long. And I've always passed over this because you always want to get to the sermon. But Jesus goes and he prays on the mountain that night. And what does he do when he finishes his prayer? The morning comes and he makes a decision which shows who he is. It shows what his mission is. Now think about it for a moment. Yes, God is moving in some special ways here that he hasn't moved in a while. The healings, the demons are cast out. Who is this man? Is he Elijah? Is he the prophet of the new covenant or something? Now, though, after ascending the mountain like Moses, he selects those 12 who will be the patriarchs of a new Israel. And then this new Israel is given the sermon which Matthew records on the Mount. This new Israel will be constituted by those who have internalized the new covenant. Those whom the world has generally neglected and or despised. The poor, the hungry, the grief-stricken. These are the citizens of the new Israel who are capable of taking the law into themselves. Indeed, who will become the very essence of the law. A community of the good and the wise. But what kind of law? I want to back up just for a moment to the text that we read just a minute ago. This is the beginning of the chapter. Reading through the Bible with Maddie over the years has been a ball because you have all kinds of insights that you don't really notice because you've read it so long, right, when you're reading it with a kid. And I can remember we were reading through, I think it probably was Luke in elementary school. And about halfway through the gospel, we came across a text that said, "Now it was a Sabbath," and she groaned. Oh, not again, right? It always happens on a Sabbath. But I think these texts, these two Sabbath-violating texts, offer us insight into the character of the new covenant. With the new law, written on the heart, is not a zero-tolerance policy, which takes wisdom and love out of ethical considerations. Indeed, the law was never really intended thus. But in this new elect of God, the law will function as it was intended. It will not be a path toward righteousness. It will grow forth out of a sanctified heart. It will become the character of the people of God. And that character, Jesus reveals, has always been and will always be outward looking. Now just read through the rest of the chapter. Focus on the sermon and notice how much of it is focused on dealing with other people and how to live righteously through love. The sermon reveals the character of this new community. It's a community that's able to discern between ethics and legalism, that's able to choose the good of the other over its own self-righteousness. I don't think Jesus is advocating violation of the Sabbath here, though Luke does not include Mark's note that the Sabbath was made for man. Look at Jesus' examples. David and the consecrated bread, and then the healing of the man with the shriveled hand. I think Jesus is clarifying, for those who are listening, the intent of the Sabbath. Indeed, the intent of all the law, which he himself will fulfill in his self-giving, self-emptying mission. The law was and is and always will be about people, about God and his people, a just, merciful, loving God and his just, merciful, and loving people. And here in Luke 6, we see the birth of that people. Oh, we don't have to go very far to know that it's off to a rocky start. We see these wonderfully merciful people wanting to call down fire on villages that reject Jesus and things like that. But in the end, this sermon will become the character of the people of God. A people who inhabit and even instantiate the character of God himself. So, I'll just ask you, how's that working out in your life? I'm almost there. I'm getting close. Just a little bit of work to do. We know that in our own churches, we never see anything like someone who would prioritize doing things right over doing right things. Ever. And the truth is, though, and we know this is the truth, we often get caught up in similar sort of legalistic traps. We like bureaucracy, we like clarity, and we know this. We like to be able to say, if this happens, then that happens. If that occurs, then that's wrong and that's right. And that's fine in some ways. That's helpful to living. But not always. The real life never fits in between the lines. Real life requires wisdom. Real life requires character. And in the new people of God, you and I have access to that life-giving Spirit and the law which is written on our own hearts. And that can change us, however slowly, into the image of Christ. In 2002 to 5 or so, I was in a quartet, and we used to go around and sing bluegrass a cappella. Yeah, figured that one out. I remember telling a lady that was organizing an event we wanted to go sing at. It was the Bluegrass Festival out in Belleville, I think. And she said, well, what do you guys do? And our manager, whatever you want to call him, said, well, we sing bluegrass a cappella. And there's just silence for about 5 seconds. What? Yeah, no, bluegrass a cappella. Well, we were big. I mean, we did great work at all of the retirement homes and nursing homes, that sort of thing. And our high tenor was incredible. I will say that. He was amazing. But he was also our youth minister, and so he had a lot of stuff going on. And we were going to have VBS. And so we were out driving one day. It's my brother, our bass, our tenor, and me, and we're driving and delivering flyers to area churches about our upcoming VBS. And it's July in San Marcos, and it's hot. And we're driving on the road that actually goes right past our church. We're driving on Holland Street, and there's a guy in a car pulled off to the side of the road, broke down. And my brother says, hey, should we stop and help that guy? And I remember saying, we're doing the Lord's work, as we drove right by him to take the flyers. Now, the thing is, that night we had a gig, and we were going to be singing at San Marcos has a big sort of gathering of music groups, and we were going out there. So around 4:30 in the afternoon, it's time for us to go. Now, in the morning, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, flip-flops, everything's great. In the evening, we're ready to go sing, so it's jackets and all that kind of stuff. And we're leaving our neighborhood, and if you've been out in our area, it's about a 3.5 mile drive from where we are to anything. And we're cruising up the road, and the car ran out of gas. And I remember walking to the gas station the whole way laughing. Okay, Lord, I hear you. Yes, God wants people who are good people. That's what the call is. And the call that Jesus illustrates here in Luke 6 is a calling to discernment, to recognizing good and to doing it. And may God equip us to do that in our own lives.